Alright, CNT120, we are working on our Chapter 6 lab, in-class lab. We're going to do a basic wireless networking lab. We're going to use our little Linksys routers that we have in the lab to do this. So first thing you're going to do is you're going to get one of those Linksys routers from Mr. Brown, and you're going to, before you power it up, you're going to cable it up, and then we'll power it up. So what you want to do is the patch cable on the back of your PC, you're just going to disconnect that and plug that into here. That's the internet port. So the cable that was going to the college internet connection is going to plug into here. The college will be our ISP, if you will. We're going to get a second patch cable and plug into one of these are your switch ports, and plug in here, and then plug that into your PC NIC. So the PC is going to be plugged into here, and then the existing cable that was there is plugged into here to go to the college. The college end up being our ISP connection. Then you will plug the power adapter in and boot this guy up. Give it a minute to boot up. Once it boots up, then we're going to check our IP settings on our Windows machine and our Linux VM. So maybe while this thing's booting, you can boot up your Windows machine and also your Linux VM. So first thing we'll do is we'll open a command prompt on Windows, and we'll do an IP config. And it might already have been, this might have already settled or picked up an IP correctly, but I have you try the commands that the book gives you of IP config /release. In other words, you release any IP that was there. Maybe it was the college 172 IP, and then turn on to an IP config /renew. And this actually talks to the DHCP server, which is in this case built into the router, picks up an IP address from it and uses that. So that allows us to release an existing IP and then renew that IP and maybe pick up the new one, if you will. So we'll do that on a Windows machine, give it a second or two to do its thing, and we'll do the same thing over here on the Linux machine as well, our Linux VM. So we'll let that do its thing. I'm going to kind of hurry it along here a little bit. There we go. And right here I'm picking up a 192.168. And I ask you what's significant about that is, well, normally we have 172s from the college. We're now getting a 192, so that's coming from somewhere. Well, yeah, it's coming from our little Linksys router. The Linksys router has a mini DHCP server built in, and it's handing out IP addresses to the nodes attached. So we're going to do the same thing here on the Linux side. I'll open a command prompt. In this case, I'm going to have you do sudo if, and then your interface down. So if I do an if config, I find out in this case my interface is ENS33, so I'll do a sudo if config ENS33 down. That'll turn that interface off. I need to plug in my password here. That interface is now disconnected or turned off, if you will, and I can turn around and do an up on this. Actually, there you see my message showing that it is off. Now I even see a little icon down here showing this disconnected and off. Now I can turn on to an up. That turns it back on. It gives it a give it a second. That NIC is coming back online, and it should be picking up an IP from the DHCP server. So if I do an ifconfig now, I get a 192.168 blah. So the same function on both, if you will, releasing an IP and picking up a new IP. Alright, in this case we just shut the Linux NIC off and turn the Linux NIC back on. So there's the first part, cabling up and getting our IP from the router. Now what we're going to do is we're going to connect into the router and do some configuration on it. We're going to do almost all this on the Windows side, so I'm just going to minimize my Linux side here for now. And what I tell you to do is, there is little utilities that come with routers to configure them, but I prefer to kind of go the old school or the admin way. What I'm going to do is I'm going to have you look at the IP address that you got. Here it is, 192.168.1.100. There's the subnet mask. And more specifically, look at the gateway address, 192.168.1.1. That is the IP address of the router. So what I can do is open a command, or open my browser, plug that address in, 192.168.1.1, and this should bring me to the login page for this router. And it should be left to the default. We do that on purpose so we can actually use these. I leave that blank and I type in admin for the password, and that should get me in. If it does not, we'll need to use the little reset button on the back, which, by the way, this guy right here, this little reset button on the back, if I hold it down for like 10-15 seconds, it reboots the thing and clears the config off, something of that nature. Now that I'm I'm browsed into the router for configuration, what I'm going to do is I'm going to give it some basic configuration. So under the setup option up here, setup, basic setup, I'm going to give it a name, and I'll do something like Brown, and I'll use my PC number 25 just so I know it's me. After that, I'm going to make sure that the DHCP server is enabled, so it's handing out IP addresses. There it is, it's enabled, and that gives you an idea that I can do some settings on that. And over here, I can actually, it says, adjust the lease time and all that jazz if I want to. I can change that, how many minutes, how many days. This case, it's 1 day. And then down here at the bottom, I can adjust my time zone. And we are in the Eastern time zone. Here's Eastern, so I'll adjust that. And then I will do a save changes on this guy. And what that'll do is it's going to do a little mini reboot of that and apply those settings for me. I'm then going to come back and I'm going to go to the wireless part, and I'm going to start configuring some basic parameters on the wireless part of my router to enable the wireless side over here. Okay, so I'm going to go to wireless, and I'm going to do basic wireless. So on basic wireless settings right here, there's security and other ones. I'm going to do basic for now. I'm going to do mixed mode, allowing different nodes to attach. I'm going to change the SSID because I want to make this unique. So I'm going to do, I'll do my PC number then wireless, just so I know it's me. So I'll do CNT120 wireless. Later on when I go to connect to this, I'll know. And then I'm going to make sure I'm not conflicting channel numbers with any of my neighbors around me. So I will verify and check with neighbors around me and pick a channel that they're not using. That way we're hopefully not overlapping. For now, I'm just going to leave it at 6 because I'm the only one in the lab right now. I will enable my SSID broadcast. Okay, and then I'm going to do a save changes on this guy too. So I'll do a save, it'll save that, it'll apply it, and it's going to take a second, and it's going to do its little reboot thing to save that. So now I gave my router a basic name. I enabled the wireless over here. I plugged in my SSID, set my channel. Now what I want to do is I want to put on some basic wireless security. So what I'm going to do, under the wireless option, I'll go to wireless security. And like it says here, I'm going to start plugging in some of my security options. So I'm going to do security mode, WPA2 personal. That would be for like around my house kind of thing or a small office. I will use the TKIP AES option. This is setting the encryption algorithm we're going to use. And then I will plug in a shared key. Well, I'll use this syntax, if you will. I'll do CNT120 password. Okay, because I'm using computer 25. I'm just keeping that basic syntax. CNT120 password. And I'll save the changes on that guy. Awesome. Under the next thing I could do, I could add some additional security here, which I will try to do as well. Now I'm going to get something handy while I'm doing this. Actually, I think I will use my laptop just for simplicity's sake today. So I'm going to pull up something here. I'm going to pull up on my laptop the MAC address of my laptop, so I have that handy. What I'm going to do is under the wireless option, the MAC filter option right here, this allows me to plug in the MAC addresses of things that are actually allowed to connect to this access point. Again, further enabling security. So I'm going to do enable on here, and I'm going to do permit only and edit the MAC address. So I'm going to permit only, and I'll edit the MAC filter list, and I'm going to plug in the MAC address of, in this case, I'm going to use my laptop. What you're going to do in lab, you can use your smartphone, you can use your, if you have a laptop handy, something like that, you're going to find the MAC address on there and plug that in. So I'm going to find the MAC address on my laptop right now. Here he is right here. I'm highlighting it just so I can see it, and I'm going to plug in 881F A1 0D 6B24, and I'm going to double check that. 881F, A10D, A10D, 6B24, 6B24. Awesome. And what I will do is I will save that, and now I have permitted only the MAC address of my laptop to be connected to this access point. That's what I've done. If you were doing this for home, you would need to plug in all the MAC addresses of all the devices in your house to do this. A little bit, time consuming, but there you go. Now I can do the advanced option over here, and I see some additional things that I've read about, including the clear to set request to send, clear to send option that I have here. Clear to send option here if I want to do that. I see some additional options. I'm not going to do those, but just so you can see that. All right, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to hold on one second. Okay, just getting my pages set. Before we actually connect a wireless node, I have you do a trace from your Windows machine and a path ping. Just because we've done them before, this gives you a chance to see them again. So from my Windows machine, I'm just going to minimize my browser. I will pull this up, and I'm going to do a trace route to google.com. And what I'll see is, the thing I'm wanting you to see here is the very first hop along the way is my router. There it is. That's the main thing I'm looking for you to see on this one. And on my VM as well, if I do a trace route to google.com, again, the first thing I'm going to see is my router, 192.168.1.1. That's the main reason I'm having you do that, to see, in this case, the router is actually a step in there. Okay? So do that, and then you can do your path ping and your MTR and see that as well. Okay, so there's your traces. Again, getting a chance to run those again, but see them with your router in play, the router you're using. What you're going to do now is, on your wireless device, whether it be your smartphone or in this case my laptop, I'm going to connect to my SSID with my laptop. So up here I'm going to find I'm going to join other network on my laptop. So I'm going to go in here where I show networks. I'm going to find my CNT wireless and do a join. I'll need to plug in CNT25 password. There we are. I will join, and I am now giving it a second, connecting, working on connecting to, there we are. I'm connected to that access point. I'm just kind of verifying. And now that I'm connected, I have you on your, back on my workstation here. I'm going to pull my browser open. I'm going to go to the status area, and under status I'll go to router. I actually see this is the settings on my machine. And in here, I should be able to select local network and DHCP client tables. So I can do local network and my DHCP client tables, and see, in this case, here is my DL Brown's MacBook Pro. There is my MacBook connected to this, as well as the Midtown 25 CNT machine, as well as my Linux VM. I can see all the machines that are connected by looking at this DHCP table. So I want you to do that as well, so you can see that they're connected. And I can even go to the wireless and look at the status of my wireless page, what has been configured and running. So do that for a few minutes, work with it, give it a try. I'm now going to grab the status of my setup. I'll open a Microsoft Word document. So I'll come over here and open Microsoft Word, and I'm going to grab open up a blank document. I'm going to grab on my router the wireless status. So I'll go to the status page again. I'll go to wireless, and I want to see here, do an Alt F function print screen, and I want to grab a screenshot of this so I see that your wireless network is set up. So I can do an Alt function print screen, and I should be able, actually I'll highlight this here. I'll go Alt function print screen. I'll go to my Microsoft Word, go paste, and there is my window showing my wireless network set up. So I will save this file. I'll do a file save as. I'll go to my 120 Brown. I'll go to the Chap6Lab, and I will give this a Chap6Lab name or something like that. And then I will have that as showing me that the wireless is set up and working. Before we're done, I'll come down here and do the factory default. So I will go to admin, and I will do the option to where it says in here factory defaults. I will do the restore factory default, and that will clear the config and reboot the router with a nice clean config for the next class. So there is a super quick overview of our Chapter 6 lab.